Okay, Wednesday, April 13th. Today's the 13th, so I'm not gonna do the news reviews today. I was thinking about doing something more way out, being that it's on the 13th of the month of Fools. So we're gonna get into some other stuff real quick. I was thinking gravity. Let's go over gravity, guys. This is always something interesting. This always triggers a bunch of emotions and creates a lot of controversy and debate. Excuse me. Now, before we go into gravity itself, we should do a little bit of history. And me being an ex-hardcore Newtonian, I know so much about Isaac Newton. It's ridiculous. And so I know a lot about his dark little secrets. So before we even talk about his invention of gravity, let's type in some other stuff, see what we see. I'm not sure what'll pop up on YouTube because I've all of this other stuff. Most of the stuff that I got originally from Isaac Newton was from the library, and then from other independent books throughout the years. One of the main ones is the Bible Code, so let's go with that one. Bible Code. I'm not even going to put the whole thing, see? Bible Code Isaac, and right away pops up Bible Code by Isaac Newton and the Bible Codes. So we'll go over this. This is, I'll tell you off the top, it's Pythagoreanism, what the Bible Code is all about. And it's pretty trippy. Well, we'll go over it all together. Now, this might be a little bit longer episode as opposed to the other ones because we have a lot to cover. So let's just get started right away, and we'll go on the first one. It says 9 months ago. I'm pretty sure that would probably be there's one 3 months ago. But that doesn't say anything. Let's just go with the first one because that popped up right away. Oh, wow. Can we hurry up?
Welcome back, folks. And today we're going to talk about Sir Isaac Newton. And we're going to discuss what he may or may not have known about the Bible codes. I personally think that Godfrey Kneller's portrait of Sir Isaac Newton says a lot about the man himself. One weird connection I can make between Isaac Newton and the Bible codes is his work that he did on Newton's rings, which is just banding of light reflection that you get with a light and a lens. The study of that subject steps so close to what you do to cipher the Bible codes, it's really uncanny. In fact, I almost can't believe that he wasn't aware of it. At least I might say that the apple didn't have to fall far from the tree for Isaac Newton to figure out what I just said.
Well, obviously this guy is he's not very knowledgeable about what's going on right here because from my understanding, when I read the Bible Code, I was like 19 years old, 17, 18 years, something like that. I was really young. And it explained that the Bible Code was actually invented by Isaac Newton. Isaac Newton somehow realized that the Torah, every 50 words is a letter, and those letters spell out Torah, obviously in Hebrew. Now, there's a lot about Isaac Newton that a lot of you don't know. Matter of fact, let's just go off of YouTube and go straight into that. Let me see. So, we'll begin with who he really was, like who he was. Let's get down with the deep side first, and then we'll work our way up. So, I had to do it like that. I should have just used the R word, but I don't want to get banned on this one. Isaac Newton was It's funny. So Newton exhibited signs of bipolar disorder early in life. He was a solitary child who didn't engage in games with other children. Believe it or not, it is said that he died a virgin. The man Newton was rigorously puritanical. When one of his few friends told him a loose story about a nun, he ended their friendship. He is not known to have ever had a romantic relationship of any kind and is believed to have died a virgin. That's funny because it when you start talking about women, and it's like what type of mother did he have? So Isaac Newton attacked a virgin. What the hell? Like, Newton disliked his stepfather and maintained some enmity towards his mother for marrying him, as revealed. So, from my understanding, Isaac Newton wanted to burn his own mother's house down. From the madness of Sir Isaac Newton, Newton's mom remarried, and he became. So basically, he attacked his own mom. It's known that he attacked his own mom a few times. If you go through here and you'll find it that he actually physically attacked her and tried to burn her house down. And so, as we can see, Isaac Newton had some really bad mental issues. I mean, if you're gonna die a virgin, you really have some seriously mental issues. It's not just his mentality. So Isaac Newton, alchemy. So alchemists were the first to realize compounds could be broken down into their constituent parts and then recombined. That's called atomism. So basically, even in telecom that I'm into, that's what they're doing. Telecommunications is they've literally broken down information into bits, and they're able to sell the bits and pieces. And so those bits, we know them as, gigabytes, megabytes, and whatnot. So everything about the central bankers is about breaking stuff down so you could sell it in pieces. So Isaac Newton was a hardcore alchemist. Now, and if you look right here, it says much of what are known Isaac Newton's occult studies, blah blah blah. He did a lot of alchemy. He did a lot of satanical stuff, even though he was supposedly a hardcore Jesuit. The Newton and alchemy, you can see it right there. So back in those days, especially because of his employment. Hold on, give me some water. So his employment, one of his most well-known jobs was he was the master of the mint. So he was in charge of the gold and whatnot for the Catholic Church. So he worked inside the Catholic Church, and from what I read about him a long time ago, he wanted to actually infiltrate the church, the Catholic Church, and the reason why he was so interested and inclined to practice alchemy in his cellars, and in hidden in the in the shadows, was because he wanted to be able to counterfeit gold. In his mind, according from what I read, he believed the Catholic Church was doing a lot of bad things, which of course we all know they do. And he wanted to bankrupt the church. And he wanted to do that with alchemy. He wanted to be able to find a way to turn, lead and other metals, that were not as precious as gold, and be able to to change them from one form to another, kind of like evolution. So yeah, he tried hard to do this, and as he was trying to do all this alchemy, he was in the cellars hiding, because you could get your head chopped off back then doing stuff like that. If the Catholic Church found out, and they're like, that's a conspiracy to attack the Catholic Church, they would chop your head off, for burn you at the stake, and all kinds of grotesque, horrible deaths that that they invented, to make it to establish the fact that you can't get over the Catholic Church. And so, as he hid in the cellars, his mental disorders got worse because of the alchemy byproducts that were that he was inhaling, behind closed doors. He literally tweaked out. Think about that. Think about that, everyone. That is a tweaker. Okay, so you're stuck like one of those methamphetamine cooks. They're hiding in some weird trailer park or a cave or something, and they're cooking this they're cooking meth, and they themselves are inhaling that stuff, and they're all spun out on that drug. That was Isaac Newton. He already had mental issues. So moving forward beyond that, we'll go to the Master of the Mint. That popped up right away. He's Warden and Master of the Royal Mint, as you guys could see. Okay. That was his position. He worked for the Catholic Church, guys. Now we'll get into the weird shit. So, as if that wasn't all weird enough. So as he did, as he was a hardcore Pythagorean. He was hardcore on this mathematics stuff. If you go back to Pythagoras, and not just Pythagoras itself, but the cult he created, because they were a cult. They had some really weird thoughts and weird stuff, weird theories. Some numbers had spirits, and in between their numbers there was vacuums of voids and just weird stuff. Supposedly that's why Pythagoras stabbed his own best friend to death, was because his own best friend actually discovered irrational numbers, which contradicted everything Pythagoras was saying. So to make it well known, he stabbed him to death in front of everyone, and just tell so. Point being, Pythagoreanism makes people go crazy. When you start talking to numbers, and these numbers start telling you these weird things, maybe they do have some type of force. Maybe these numbers are, some type of force or some shit like that. So anyways, given that he wasn't, talking about numbers, that's the Bible code itself is based on, on these numbers and stuff. So, he calculated an apocalypse. Well, first of all, he started a self-proclaimed prophet, messenger of God. Okay, there it is there. I mean, he literally knew himself appointed status as a messenger chosen to reveal God's secret, was drove him to examine the Bible. That's historycollection.com on the first one. A brief survey of Sir Isaac Newton's views on religion. But it is not commonly known that Newton was also a devout Christian who wrote extensively about Christianity. In fact, Isaac Newton wrote more about theism than he did about any other topic. Isaac Newton's life was one long search for God. He said himself that he was a gift from God that was brought here and I mean, so anyone that's like worshiping him or is like, yeah, he was a genius, and no, he wasn't. He was totally insane. So seeing that he worked for the Catholic Church, he believed he was a prophet. Let's move forward. Isaac Newton, 2060. I'm not even gonna put the rest of it. And it popped up. Sir Isaac Newton predicts the world will end in 2060. Now, believe it or not, his apocalypse is way more insane than the Bible versions, and by that I mean two, because there was two different Bible version endings. There's the Revelations that we all know of, and then there was another one called the Book of Apocalypse. I believe it's called the Book of Apocalypse, but it was removed from the standard Bible that we see now. Now, yeah, so I mean, he talks about a lake of fire, Jesus coming back in the form of a zombie. I mean, it's insane what he goes on to say. So already, I mean, this is all enough for me to say, yeah, maybe I shouldn't put faith in gravity, because the guy that invented it, I mean, he had some serious mental issues, guys, for reals. he was literally sick in the head. So we can move forward. We can go on to what he said about gravity. This is probably gonna piss a lot of you guys off, but I have to do it for your own good, because if you guys believe in this, if you guys believe in gravity, you need to understand where it came from. So according to him, and you can see right here on pillarchive.org, cited by one, he rules all things not as the world's soul, but as the Lord of all, and because of his dominion, he went ahead and said that God was the cause of gravity. His theory of gravity, here's another one up here on uh.edu. Sir Isaac Newton mechanized the world. His theory of gravity swept away for the need for the divine hand. That's not, see, some of this stuff is like totally contradictory. Let's see. Let's see what they're saying right there. So Newton, God, and gravity. All right, today we get pulled in the university of the machines making our civilization run, people whose ingenuity created that. Sir Isaac Newton mechanized the world. His theory of gravity swept away for the need of a divine hand guiding the planets, and he unleashed. So basically what they're saying right there is that that it wasn't technically, that they're saying that instead of God, it was gravity that was holding everything into place. Right there, that's what they're saying. But while Newton's work freed planetary motion from dependence on a deity, it solidified his own personal belief in God. Okay. The best explanation comes from a series of letters written by Noon to Richard Bentley, a leading theologian and scholar of the day. Noon had no problem with the purely mechanical way in which gravity explained the ongoing motion of the planets. What troubled him were questions about how the planets got their motion in the first place, and not metaphysical questions but scientific. Noon considered various scenarios of how the solar system might have formed. If it was formed by gravity pulling together tiny bits of matter spread throughout the universe, why would there be planets? Specifically, why wouldn't all the matter get pulled into a single great mass? Further, why was the sun the one and only body in the solar system to give off heat and light? Newton then considered the possibility that the planets were wandering comets trapped by the sun's gravity. But here too he quickly saw the problems. For one, the planets have very orderly orbits relative to one another. Mercury's orbit is inside Venus's. Venus is inside Earth, and so on. The chances of random comets having this property defy all probability. Comets captured at random would almost certainly have crossing, highly eccentric orbits. Even more, all the planets have orbits lie in a plane. There's the word plane again, guys. That just couldn't happen by chance alone. The motions which planets now have, wrote Newton to Bentley, could not spring from any natural cause alone, and were impressed by an intelligent agent. Excuse me. And as an unapologetic Christian, there's no doubt to whom he was referring. And that's what I'm talking about right there. All right? Although he said God, gravity did this and did that, he was really saying that God was behind the creation of gravity. That gravity is an intelligent tool that's used by God. We can go on and on. I suggest, if you want to know more about this specific part of Newton, of Isaac Newton's weird, you go ahead and read it. There's plenty. See, this guy says he's Andy Boyd at the University of Houston. So, this Newton's philosophy of nature. You see on the bottom right there, the other information where they got the information from. This is H. Taylor Nolan, originally published New York, 1953. God and Natural Philosophy. There's the references right there. So you could go ahead and read that, on your own if you want. I don't want to keep reading and going on to it, but basically, he's tied gravity to a divine force. That's what he did. He invented gravity and tied it to a divine force. So that alone, on top of all his other weird stuff, I have no reason to believe in a gravity. So a Newtonian gravity, especially at that, because that's what came. So then after Isaac Newton comes up with this, gravity philosophy, it throughout the years, everyone just kind of clung to it, pun intended. You know what I mean? And they just kind of clung to an old, outdated, impossible religious belief. It was a religious belief, straight out. And so I don't want to bring up, the other, priests. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to bring up Le Matre because that's the other form of gravity that we're going to move forward into discussing right now. So moving beyond that, everyone kind of stuck to Newtonian gravity for a long time, even though, as we see right here, it's really accredited to a divine force, a divine agent, a creator. Now, the reason why he didn't, according to the scripture, it's you're not supposed to say God's name in vain, so he never used the word God. He used different words to try to describe God, and he wouldn't use the word God because he felt it was a sin. I know a lot about Newton. He was insane. He's not someone that anyone should be idolizing, and everyone should be aware of his religious and philosophical ideology, and his motives for making up all these different for trying to make the church go bankrupt. Like, it's insane. Everything he did was literally insane. There's conspiracies that I don't want to move that much into, but from my understanding, Isaac Newton made up an alter ego so they wouldn't blame him for all the things, so they wouldn't chop his head off. And a lot of and Isaac Newton was not alone, by the way, guys. He was working with the Jesuits to try to overturn and infiltrate the Catholic Church. And so they made up this guy named Hook. Is it Hook? I believe it is Hook. And so supposedly Hook is they like a lot of the discoveries that were potentially heretical were accredited to this other guy named Hook. Nobody ever seen him. He's just like they'd go looking for him, and they're like, where is he at? Oh, he left with Isaac Newton. And then they're like, where was he at? Or he argued with Isaac Newton. A couple of them were like, yeah, we seen them fighting, but nobody ever actually seen Hook. Oh, Cook. Let me see. Isaac Newton versus, was it Cook? Hook. No, it was Hook. The great confrontation between the two men occurred in 1686. Newton published the first volume of his Principia. And the Principia is where I actually read that he said that that gravity was a godly force. That's where I read that out. And Hooke affirmed that it was he who had given him the notion that led him to the law of universal gravitation. See, he said, oh yeah, it wasn't me that said this, it was actually Hooke. Hooke demanded credit as the author of the idea of Newton, and Newton denied it. So they were like literally going back and forth supposedly, and this guy Hooke was actually given a lot of credit to a lot of the discoveries. And they literally, if they were to try to look for this guy Hooke, they would never have found him because he didn't actually exist. I actually, I challenge you guys to prove Hooke existed. Unlike all these other famous people that had portraits of themselves and were very egoistic, and they had like people drawing them, and they had interviews, and then they would have like some type of form of animation or some type of form of cartoon character or some type of artistic expression of who you were or what. No, this guy is just, he doesn't exist. That picture right there that we see is not him. You'll see say who met Hooke. His interests knew no bounds, ranging from physics and astronomy to chemistry to biology and geology, architecture, naval technology. Wow, he was such a big genius and blah, but nobody's seen him. Nobody ever seen him. Let me see much. Who met? Maybe that's a wrong question to ask. Let me see. Robert Hooke portrait. Let's just say that. The mystery of the missing portrait of Robert Hooke. See what I'm saying, guys? Like, look at the different images they have of what he looked. He looked so throughout the years they've changed him. Some of the times to resemble one of the church leaders at the time. He'll look like a pope, or he'll look like, it's ridiculous. Yeah, Isaac Newton was really insane, and you could easily see him making up an alter ego that he argued with, and that supposedly he competed with. It was, and like, if they found any of this information heretical, they would have not looked for Isaac Newton. They would have went looking for Robert Hooke, and they would have never found him. This is how they got around the freedom of speech issue back then, because back then they didn't have freedom of speech. You'd get your head chopped off. I mean, this whole freedom, there's a reason why I try so hard to defend freedom of speech. I don't think everyone should be banning each other. Did I start banning, trying to get the nemesises? Yeah, they challenged me to a banning contest. That's why I have no problem. You know what I mean? It's not like I'm banning other people. It's just specifically like 4 or 5 idiots that deserve it, to give them a taste of their own medicine. All right? So back then, you would get your head chopped off. Freedom of speech is precious. It is totally sacred. We need to respect it. And here we see how insane it got. They had to make up some weirdo that never existed and give him the credit, so they wouldn't. I mean, he's credited. Like, if you go reading about Robert Hooke, you would wonder, why isn't he the one that everyone is idolizing instead of Isaac Newton? It's just insane. It's like an insane guy made up some imaginary competition to himself, and he would have never got in trouble with the Catholic Church. Okay, so moving forward, and let's move out of the Isaac Newton persona, and let's just move more into gravity. Let's look up just what over the years, like I said, over the years, everything has changed, right? Gravity definition, and I will explain how that. Gravity definition, Newtonian. Okay, so Newton's law of universal gravitation is usually stated as that every particle attracts every other particle in the universe with the force that is directly proportional to the product of their masses, inversely proportional to the square of the distance between their centers, right? Okay, there's also something similar to this called Coulomb's law. And so this is actually a redundant, outdated formula. But pretty much, and look, there's the stupid, look, there's a cartoon globe right there. So basically this is Newton's law of universal gravitation, which we just read on the last article that we read right now together, that he realized there was problems with this whole thing. Particle attracts other particle, you know what I mean? And so even he himself stated there was something wrong with that. So this is basically the mass attracts mass, okay? Which, as we can see right here, Newton himself knew was a failure. There's no reason to say Newtonian gravity is great or it's smart or it's a good theory. It is not. Sorry, guys. As we went through here right now, I easily dissected his mind so you guys could see that gravity is ridiculous. It's not, especially Newtonian. Now, Some people were like, yeah, gravity, this gravity. Okay, now Einstein debunked Newton. All right, Einstein debunked Newton. They're not the same type of gravity. To be honest, Einstein could have called it anything else. He could have gave it a different name of what he was talking about, his theory. He could have just gave it a different name. However, he chose to not only debunk Isaac Newton, but he chose to topple Isaac Newton. See the difference? He decided to take Isaac Newton's word and use it for himself. Here's one of the main things about Einstein, and I'm not downing him as being like dumb. I actually think he was pretty bright, and he did a lot of things that contradicted himself, and I believe he did so intentionally. And this being one of them, of him taking he was known for being a thief, guys. Unfortunately, Einstein is a known thief of concepts. He worked as a patent clerk, and so he came across a lot of he read the inventions, a lot of patents, and so he stole it. He stole a lot of ideas from other people. He's a known thief, and this is a prime example. Why did he take Newton's theory and use that word for his own theory? It has nothing to do with mass attracts mass. Newton debunked by Einstein. Einstein showed Newton was wrong about gravity. And that's on mainstream media. New research confirms Einstein's theory of gravity, but brings science a step closer to the day that when it might be supplanted by something new. So, basically, Einstein said gravity was wrong. And then he made up his own theory and named his own theory gravity. So basically, he stole that word from Einstein for no reason. He stole it. It has no. There is nothing. Newtonian gravity is not Einsteinian gravity. It is not. Okay. Now we're gonna go ahead and look at hey. Gravity definition. Okay, so, and as you guys could see, basically, gravity, according to Einstein, is flat, but stretchy. Now, if you go over Newtonian gravity, Isaac Newton claimed that time and space was flat like a table, a billiards table specifically. And a lot of what they did about physics was them playing with billiards and playing pool, playing 8-ball and stuff like that. And that was his. A lot of like the motion of the planets and blah blah blah. A lot of that was analogous to playing pool on the table. Now, Einstein is totally different. His is not time and space. What he came up with was called space-time, and it is flat, but it's stretchy like a fabric. So right here on his definition, Gravity is most accurately described, and so as we see right there, it's not really a definition; it's a description. Excuse me. So, gravity is most accurately described by general theory of relativity, proposed by Einstein, which describes gravity not as a force. It is not a force, okay? It's not that mass attracts mass, square, inversely proportional, and then because it's a force, the force is inversely squarely proportional. Okay? According to Einstein, there is no force, okay? But so which describes gravity not as a force but as the curvature of space-time caused by the uneven distribution of mass and causing masses to move along geodesic lines. So that's like saying, you know, you have flat space-time, and then you put a big globe on it, and it kind of like droops, like, you know, like it would if you had some spandex or something like that, and threw a marble or a bowling ball into it. You know what I mean? This is ridiculous. So, excuse me. Again, getting a grip on gravity. Einstein's general theory of relativity explains gravity as a distortion of space. So basically, as we could see right here, gravity was debunked. Then somebody else, the same person that debunked gravity, decided to use that same word to describe something totally different. Now, if this is actually defined as insanity, guys. You're doing the same shit over and over, expecting different results. All right? Now, they're trying to cling to gravity. Again, pun intended. So I know this is pretty rough for you guys to deal with. You know, I tried throwing some jokes in here, but ouch. I know it hurts. It's gotta hurt. I know it hurt me when I found all this out. And believe me, there was no Flat Earth versus Fear Earth group. Let's not forget, I was the one that started all that. Okay? I learned all of this by myself in the library, where I would get mad and they'd be like, shh, shh. And I'd be like, motherfucker. I'd be cussing at Isaac Newton. When I found out all his black magic rituals, and believe me, he has them, I honestly got pretty pissed off. I was really upset at Isaac Newton, and I got mad at I got really mad at science in general, and then I realized that no, I had to learn about these things so I could correct people, and so people could get their shit straight. All right? This is basic common information you can find on Google now. This is nothing that I learned was a lie. If anything, I feel really glad that I knew that I was learning about all this ahead of time, and I'm able to like point it out now to everyone. Now, moving beyond that, we're going to go on to the space-time. Space-time is flat. So space-time is not flat. It can be. Einstein's general theory of relativity says that matter and energy curve space-time, and there are enough matter and energy lying around to provide for curvature. But then you look down and it says, how do you know if space-time is flat? A space-time is locally flat if and only if no geodesical deviation exists for the congruencies of all kinds of geodesics. In other words, if there's nothing there, it's flat. Then when you add something there, it kind of like droops into it. Look, and you can see the images. Right? Look at that. Let's visit that. Okay, so this is going to be funny. So it's been 100 years since Albert Einstein completed his theories of relativity. They were radical, bruh. They reshaped the way physics views space, time, gravity, even the universe. But try explaining them to a child. The first thing you should know if you read this is I know nothing about Albert Einstein's theory of relativity apart from the fact that Einstein's theory and it has something to do with relativity. But if you're like me and if you stick with me, there's a good chance we'll learn something together. So let's go. It's general. Okay, so Einstein's theory of general relativity consists of two theories. General relativity and special relativity. They are Einstein's theories on how we should interpret motion between relative points in time and space and how matter bends or curves the time-space continuum, giving us what we perceive to be gravity. So as we can see right there, it's a theory consisting of two theories, right? So it's two imaginary stories, and these stories are on how we should interpret motion, how we should interpret. Like, it's telling you how to interpret motion between different points in time and space. So, and how matter bends or curves the time-space continuum, giving us what we perceive to be gravity. So it's basically, again, it's an imaginary story about how we should see reality, basically. And they just babble along with these other words. So together they form one of the greatest theories in physics to have ever been postulated by a former patents officer who didn't wear socks. So postulated, if you guys don't know what that means it's like you imagined it. All right. And again, I was right about he was a former patents officer. Again, he stole a lot of information from other people. Exactly how he stole this word gravity. Because the way we're reading it right now has nothing to do with how Isaac Newton said. Why didn't he give this a different word? Because he was a thief. So basic principles of special relativity. The laws of physics are all the same for all observers moving at a constant speed. Okay, so that's the difference between time and space time. All right. So right here we have the laws of physics are the same for all observers moving at a constant speed. And in time and space, they are not the same for observers moving at a constant time and speed. The speed of light is the same for all observers, irrespective of their motion relative to the light source. So if we see something fall and the light source was different, moving at different rates, it doesn't matter how they were moving. We both seen the same light source. This is literally what he said, okay? I'm just going off of what he said, right? So basic principles of general relativity. And look, at the top of all this, he didn't have an actual science experiment. All right? Einstein and Isaac Newton really did not have real experiments. These guys are theoretical physicists. That's what they're called nowadays. Basically, they're bullshitters. They sit around playing make-believe. So Einstein's field equation showed how gravity behaves in response to matter in space-time. The principles of covariance states that the laws of physics must adopt the same form in all coordinate systems. So basically, this is all like mumbo jumbo, and if you break it all down, you could actually see where it's wrong. We're gonna move to. Let's move back real quick, specifically to the definition. So, space-time tells. Okay, so here we go. Einstein's general relativity can be summed up to just 12 words. All right, instead of going through all those mumbo jumbo that we just went through, right? And as you can see, it's just a bunch of it's it's a word salad of what we just went over. So let's sum it up in 12 words, as mainstream media is showing us right now. Google, right? So space-time tells matter how to move. Matter tells space-time how to curve. Right? So space-time talks to matter, and then matter responds to space-time. That's what they're saying. Space-time tells matter. Okay, so how? How does space-time tell matter how to move? Does it direct it? Does it instruct it? Does it send it an email? Does it make a YouTube video? Then matter tells space-time how to curve. Now, if space-time is flat and it's told to curve and it curves, is space-time smart? Obviously, space-time is like responding to the instructions and directions, and it's doing what it's told. So I'm assuming that would be like some form of intelligence, right? Now, to move this all back, to move this all in a circle, to close this off, because as we can see, it's just a bunch of mumbo jumbo. Einstein really did not explain anything. He just made up some imaginary story and took the word gravity from somebody else. And he totally destroyed gravity. That mass attracts mass. That got destroyed by Einstein. So we're going to move back to Einstein. Now, Einstein himself was no saint. As a matter of fact, he was a pantheist, and we'll go over pan real quick. Einstein was a pantheist but rejected a notion of a personal God. So and that's basically all pantheism is. So pantheism, if you guys, I've already explained pantheism to a lot of, on a couple other videos, and on throughout the social media websites that I'm on. But just to reiterate and just to remind everyone who Pan is, the Pan God, he's not like these other gods where he cares about his creations. That's really not the case with this God. The pantheist God, he creates things and then he takes off and lets it fall apart. Again, I've said it over and over. He's an impersonal God. He doesn't care about you. He doesn't care that he created you, or he doesn't care that that you're suffering. He doesn't care that he created you and you created a world of shit for yourself, and now you're suffering and you're in pain. Or he doesn't care. He doesn't care about your problems. He doesn't care about the problems of the problems that you're having. He doesn't care about the people, the problems that are around you that have. He doesn't care. Matter of fact, he gets off on it. And we've already went over these words like pandemonium, panic. Even Peter Pan. Peter Pan is the little. He's the embodiment or the incarnation of the god Pan. And he literally does whatever, he just floats around, using gravity. And using anti-gravity. And he's really irresponsible. He doesn't want to grow up. He wants to play make-believe all day long, and, with his friends. And so this is literally the story of Peter Pan comes from the god Pan and pantheism and that whole ideology. Now, Einstein followed a guy named Spinoza. And Spinoza Albert stated that he believed in the pantheistic God of Baruch Spinoza. He did not believe in a personal God who concerns himself with the fates and actions of human beings, a view which he described as naive. So as we could see right there, going from Isaac Newton and his hardcore Elohim, Yahweh God, or whatever God he may have thought he was, he was praying to, because he did a lot of weird stuff, and I can go on a philosophical rant on what all that means. It's a little bit deeper. We can go. I can make a different. Oh, to hell with it! I'll just go ahead and do it right here. So, according to biblical scriptures, right? According to biblical scripture, Isaac Newton, when you read the beginning of the Bible, it says, "In the beginning there was nothing. Then God said, 'Let there be light.'" If you go into the deeper scriptures, it says that there was a dark water. There was a black water, dark water is what it says, and God's face was upon it. So God was looking at just black water, and then God said, "Let there be light." So if you break that down, it says that God said, so he uses sound. So sound comes, before light does. He said, "Let there be light." So God said, "Let there be light." And if you if you kind of like use the words from nowadays, that kind of sounds like the electromagnetic spectrum, where everything is frequency. So frequency creates both sound and light, which is why at the Electrical Training Institute that I went to teaches that sound is frequency, no matter what. Even just because you can hear it does not stop it from being a frequency, and just because you cannot hear it, again, does not stop it from being a frequency. There's like the dog whistle. Dogs can hear it, but humans cannot. All right, certain animals can hear certain radio waves that us humans cannot, and so or frequencies, I should say. And so here we go there. So God said, "Let there be light." So basically, the light is not God. The light is a creation of God. The light is the Son of God. Okay, it was the darkness that created the light using its own sound. That's what they're saying. That's what the Bible says. And these hardcore Jesuits, they know this concept that's not taught in normal churches. Because normal churches, they're like, yeah, the light, and this is the light, and the light this, and they talk about, the heavenly light, the light, the pure light and whatnot. But that's not what the biblical scriptures say. The biblical scriptures are specific, and they say that there was nothing in darkness, and then God said, there goes the sound, "Let there be light," and then light was created. So these guys know this, from Einstein to Isaac Newton. They know these things. They don't worship the light, guys. They worship the darkness. They believe the darkness created the light because of the biblical scriptures. And if you ask me, my opinion on this, I could easily sit there and say that no, there is no darkness, because light is basically just sound that your eyes can hear. Do you guys even science, bro?